Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 137 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we are going to bring on Ryan McLean. Ryan works at MDT and is one of their marketing and chassis specialists, and we're really excited to have him on the podcast because they have a lot of great chassis coming out in 2023. Of course, we just got our first ACC Elite here, but there's a couple others as well as some unsung heroes. So this is going to be a great interview. We're looking forward to having Ryan on the show. So without further ado, here we go. All right, so before we get started, we'd like to thank two of our sponsors here. First, we'd like to thank TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They are available not only for our custom rifles here, but they make lots of aftermarket triggers for lots of different makes and models. So if you want to install a world-class trigger and up your game on your rifle, you can stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger is the maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They offer a new program called Krieger Direct where you can order your custom barrel and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to kriegerdirect.com. That's kriegerdirect.com. So this ought to be a great interview, and we're looking forward to having Ryan on the show. So without further ado, let's introduce Ryan, and let's talk to MDT about some new chassis releases for 2023. All right, so with me today is Ryan McLean. Ryan works for MDT, and I'm really excited for the podcast because they have a lot of really cool stuff coming out. We actually just got our first ACC Elite in last week, so I got lots of questions and really just a lot of cutting-edge stuff that behind the scenes I'd like to ask Ryan and what MDT does and how they do it, and just excited to bring him on and talk about the new products for 2023. So, Ryan, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Really look forward to it.
So, to get started, what all do you do for MDT and official roles?
So, my official role has actually changed lately. I am the competition category manager, and I keep on still doing the testing management as well. So, I basically run everything that just has to do with competition, from PRS, F-class, shotgun, anything like that we want to look at getting into or gotten into. And then obviously on the testing side of it, I work heavily with the engineering crew, and we do quite a bit of range testing and, and also do quite a bit of video stuff too, or YouTube with some testing as well. So it's a full week by the time we're done.
So a couple of things I'd like to lead into with the podcast is just talking about some of the new products you guys have coming out, and just really excited to see, to let you know where I'm coming from, in with the podcast and listeners out there. Years and years ago, there was a couple chassis makers that were out there that were, you had the AICS, for example, and then, you had one or two start to come on to the market that were doing okay, but not a lot of them were listening to shooters. A lot of them weren't really strong. They were in their infancy, and molded stocks were still what I would consider leading the pack per se. 80% of our builds were probably traditional molded stocks, and 20% were starting to get into chassis. And now all of a sudden, I'm super excited for this time right now and what we're in custom rifles, because the tide has turned. And because I really do believe you can make a better rifle with a specific made chassis with modern technology. And now we're starting to see the tides turn where 85% of our builds are chassis driven of some kind, and probably less than 10%, 15% on the molded side. So what you guys have done to bring chassis to the forefront and making a real lightweight hunting chassis that really does work, and that's been a long time coming, and probably a lot of learning along the way. So kudos to you guys for where you're at right now and what you're making. But for the listeners that are out there, can you go back and share some of the stories of where you guys started from? What was your first interest in getting into this market, and the process that you guys had to go through to get to where you're at as basically a leader in the industry today? Because it's not as easy as what some people think sometimes, breaking into these markets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so a bit of history on us. The original chassis that we had designed was started back in 2009, actually, by one of our founders, Laszlo. He was a machinist and really actually wanted an AI chassis, but couldn't afford to go and buy one at the time because they were very expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he, being a machinist, he threw some drawings together and started tinkering on it, and the TAC-21 came about. And the reason why it was called TAC-21 is because it was the 21st design. So from that, there was some more refining of it, developing of it, and business planning and everything. And then we were incorporated in 2012, and that's actually when our current owner came on board as well, Martin Van Rudenberg. So, and from there we developed multiple other products, accessory products, things like that. Then we went to the LSS, which was more of a budget entry level stock or chassis, kind of gap that price point from where the TAC-21 was when it started. And then, added chassis from there, going to LSS XL. We've got multiple other chassis that we've added along the way that actually have been even discontinued, like HS3. And then multiple generations. We're on second generations of several of our chassis as well now. And then in around 2017, 2018 is where we saw a really big jump in our development. And we came out with the ACC, the original ACC, which we now call the Premier ACC. And that was really a leap forward in our chassis design and moving towards competition style chassis with the longer forend, squared off forend, Arca rail built in, a super adjustable and something you could balance with a weight system. So after we developed the Premier, we obviously we were still developing other chassis. We started moving into more stock style chassis like the XRS. We've also done entry level chassis like the Oryx chassis, and now we're actually going to be releasing an Oryx stock that we showed at SHOT Show last year. The one that also big jump, I think it was 2020 or 2021, we released the HNT26, which was our first step into the hunting market with a full magnesium center body and carbon fiber forend, buttstock, and grip coming in at right around 26 ounces. And the cool thing with that chassis, besides it being insanely light, was also the built-in Arca rail on the forend and the ability to have a folder on it and still be in that 26 ounce range. So that's really where we've been in the last handful of years. And then just before Christmas there, we released the ACC Elite, which was the updated version of the Premier. And back in the summertime, we also re-released the J. Allen G4 or Gen 4 for the 700. And we've been working on that for a few years. We actually purchased J. Allen, the race J. Allen, when they went into business a handful of years ago, and then have redeveloped that to bring it back to the market.
And I think on our side, when we talk about that flip, is getting the traditionalist or traditional style rifle out into a chassis was the hunting chassis themselves. Although I hunted with chassis even when like the AI was around, I used to hunt with my AI chassis early years just because that was my match gun. I wanted to spend a lot of time with it, but they weren't really well suited for hunting, and they were expensive, and they were sort of hard to get sometimes too. But when you leap forward to where we're at now, to where the hunting chassis are now going to start dominating the market, I said for years that eventually the chassis were going to overrun a traditional molded. So I've spoken with one of the owners of the traditional molded stocks years ago, and I'd ask him, I was like, look, when are you guys going to jump into the hunting chassis market? Because there's this gap there, and it's coming. Like in these industries, the ground's always shaking under your feet, so you better be looking in front and behind. And like, what are you guys going to do to address this? And they're like, well, that's not our expertise. We would never build one. We're never building a chassis. And it's like, in my mind, I was like, boy, that's dangerous territory, because I really felt that 4 or 5 years from now, the hunting chassis were going to pass the traditional molded stocks. Outside of traditional look, there's just too many advantages to what can be done with a modern chassis, as long as we could get it light and we could get it strong. And I think that was that compromise of trying to get that into something that's not a molded shell was probably the hardest part. So with that said, how hard was it to get, like, we've built a lot of HNT26s, and what a home run for a chassis. I mean, it was like the nail, honestly. The chassis that are coming out right now are almost a nail in the coffin to the traditional molded stocks. This is my honest opinion, right? I still love like a lot of your molded stocks, and I really love the people in the industry, and a lot of them are friends of mine, but there's just the page is turned. And, you know, how much work was it, though, to get the HNT26 up to speed and get it to where it was that light and that strong? Because that's been the hard part. I mean, it's been coming for years. You guys made it happen. What type of learning curve was that, and how long did it really take you?
Yeah, so we have a really solid development team here between our designers and engineers that worked very, very hard on that whole system. And the idea behind that chassis was we wanted to obviously have the lightest chassis on the market, and to identify that, it took quite a bit of research and understanding, and making sure everything was going to come together with mixing carbon fiber and magnesium together for one thing, and then having not worked with carbon fiber is another aspect you have to overcome as well, which has its challenges in itself, as well as magnesium, that being said too. So combining those two together was definitely challenging. Obviously, the one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that chassis was actually going to be released about 6 to 8 months before we actually released it. We had an aluminum center body, and it did not have the ARCA built into the fore end. At that point, we said, well, we need to get it lighter. So we we looked into doing it with magnesium, and knew that was a big part of it. And at the same time, we were going to do that change into magnesium. While that development was happening, we were like, well, can we put ARCA into the carbon fiber? Because that's just badass. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to have that ability to do that. And so we did it. Yeah. So it's like I said, it's been a challenge. Carbon fiber is a beast in itself, especially when it's, you're working with it, like I said, with other materials. And we have a very strong carbon fiber team here that we're developing more stuff as well, right? And trying to refine everything as we go along even more to make sure we get the very highest quality of all the products we can put out. So it was definitely a learning curve, and what we've learned from that has paid dividends going into other projects or other ideas that we want to do as well.
Well, kudos to you guys. I mean, I didn't know that you paused a product launch. I mean, a lot of companies would never do that. They'd be like, dude, it's done. It's going on the market. We have to make some money. And then you're right on the ARCA rail. A lot of these guys that are going on hunts, especially now when you got all these great tripods out there that you're going to take anyway, for your spotting scopes and all these other things, to be able to throw your rifle up on there on a standing shot. I mean, you're already carrying it, and the opportunity to do that, it's pretty solid. And to do it with carbon fiber is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually how I shot both my animals this fall here. I got a black bear in September shooting off a tripod, and then I shot a moose at just over 300 yards off the tripod as well. So
nice.
It's, prone shots aren't always available, and, a nice kneeling shot usually is.
Yeah.
Or standing even.
Or standing. So just a side question for you. When you're shooting off your tripod, any brand that you like? And then do you have, like you picture the diamond, do you have the two legs in the back and the front one in the middle forward? Or how's your tripod situated when you're shooting off of it?
Yeah, so I run a RRS Anvil, and then I also have an RRS Ascent for if we go further in for backpacking. The Anvil is my match tripod, and I use that for everything. So, and like I said, the Ascent is a lot lighter. It's great for glassing and does a good job also for shooting off of. So it's definitely on the lighter side, which makes it very appealing to carry. And for setup wise, you know what? I'm not overly particular about it. Generally, I try to put two legs to the rear, and with the Anvil, I set my hand up on where the lever is, and that gives me good support and the quick adjustability as well.
Yeah, and RRS is really right stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So let's move on to you got the HNT26 now as a folder. And like I said, I can't tell you how many rifles we built on it. Just a beautiful, beautiful setup for legitimate hunting rifles that you want to be lightweight. But the ACC Elite, we just did a video on it. We released it on Friday. We got our first one here. And the coolest Easter egg ever, I don't know if that's what you want to call it or not, but when we opened the box and we're like, what was that noise? Is that in all of the boxes?
No, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Yes, it's in all the boxes for the first, I think we got like 500 of those things. So basically the first release, first couple releases of production. And it was one of the, I think it was the marketing guys, or might even have been Martin that came up with that idea that we should do something like that. We've been doing that type of thing on some of our other releases. We did our TIMBR stock release, which is a wood laminate stock with a metal center body chassis this summer, and we had like a custom eater patch that was put in them as well.
Nice.
So that's little things like that for when we do those initial releases. That's kind of a cool factor.
So on the ACC Elite, as a shooter or someone that loves shooting, right? You guys listened to a lot of feedback. That was the first time we looked at it, and just going over all the things like just immediately that stand out on the modifications that you did. Way to go.
Thank you.
How long was this in development, and how many people were you listening to? Because you were listening to shooters for sure.
Yeah, so we released our first version of it at SHOT Show last year. So that was the Gen 1 of our production, we'll call it, or Gen 1 of our beta testing. And we had kicked it off, I want to say in the May before that. So we had 6-7 months into it before it got to SHOT Show. And then from there, we developed it further with a lot of input from our shooting team. We had multiple guys on our shooting team running these things. So we had a lot of feedback from our shooters from all over the U.S. there, and different styles of shooters as well, and really refined some of the points from where we had it at SHOT Show. Biggest changes were around the mag well. We had like a mag well block system in there initially that would adjust the mag well, and it just threw off everything for ergonomics.
Mm-hmm.
And then refining like the mag latch adjustment, height adjustment, and I've had a couple of our guys kind of say that we went from stock car racing to a F1 car racing with this machine, with this chassis. Just basically went and stiffened everything up as much as we possibly could. Put that connector bar on the back end of it. We have placing there's holes in the top of the forend for putting on control bridges or mirage hoods, whatever you want to refer to them as, or NV hoods if you want to run night vision on them. In the back end, the adjustability is very quick and easy. There's also your 1/8 and a T10 Allen key underneath the cheek piece that will adjust everything on that chassis except for your action screws, basically. So, we wanted to make everything, as refined as we possibly could and just as streamlined as possible, adding the adjustable thumb shelves, adjustable, grip is still super adjustable as well. The connector bar, like I said, just stiffening the whole rear end up, and adding the R-lock in the forend. That type of thing. It's refined from where it was, and it's a step forward, by far.
For us here at the school, one of the things that we struggle with at the shooting school is a lot of times we get shooters from all over the country, and they can be 15 or 50, and they can be 4'5" or 6'9", and adjusting them and getting them set to each stock and getting it to fit properly is really a big key to getting them to shoot well and learning how to shoot. But then just making it a lot easier, like all these stocks that we've had at the school over the years, trying to get the right tool, digging through your toolbox because nobody uses the same screw on anything, trying to find space. I mean, it's a real big pain in the butt. Usually 2 or 3 instructors messing around for an hour or two to try to get all the stocks fit to the students. So I can't tell you how much of a relief it was to see all that. It was like, wow, that's going to make our lives a lot easier this year, getting them fit to students really, really quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely. We also went and shortened up the buttstock quite a bit on this version. It does actually ship with I think it's a 0.8 spacer in there, but you can remove that out and you can shorten the stock up substantially for the smaller frame shooters, and really get that gun squared up properly and still have good eye relief.
We haven't shot it yet. The first one that came in was actually ordered for a customer, so we're going to take it out and do some filming and shooting with it this week when the weather permits. So excited to spend some time with it. We have one coming for the school and hopefully another one soon after. And then we do have a J. Allen coming. We haven't gotten the J. Allen yet, but I can't let you out without, there's 2 other stacks I do want to talk a lot about. I'm a big fan of the J. Allen. Before Lisa and them went out of business, we built on them for sure. We shot one for the longest time. And when they went out of business, it was sort of sad because it was a really comfortable stock, and it was such a was a nice stock that fit some people really well. And so when you guys bought it, I was pretty excited about it. It's like, that's saving something it's not the perfect stock for everybody, but it's a good choice. So what was it like purchasing that and bringing it to market? We have one coming. It's released, so we can't wait to get it here. But what type of refinements did you do to it? Is there any modifications? I mean, I haven't seen one yet. I'm still waiting for ours here, but excited to see it. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the J700, maybe the history of it for some listeners that probably have no idea what we're talking about with what's a J. Allen 700.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. So I can't remember exactly what the timeline was when it was purchased or the rates were purchased, but basically what it came down to is that chassis, everybody loved it. It's very comfortable to shoot. It has a very, as they say, dead feeling because of the way that it was assembled. And the ergonomics were comfortable, and they had a lot of features that everybody liked. So when we took it over, we really wanted to just refine it a little bit further, update it to 2022, now 23, and just, make sure that it was going to be the right product moving forward once it did get released. Some of the big things we had to overcome was the complexity of assembly and machining on this thing. There is a boatload of metal parts in this thing. We also went and shortened up the buttstock because it was on the longer side, the original one, and then added a vertical grip available with a vertical grip and the angled grip. So, like I said, just more modernizing it. The other big thing we did too was around the fore end attachments on the side and the bottom. Those are all a M-LOK style now as well. Those are M-LOK hole spacing. For
those that have never shot a J. Allen stock, I really thought that it was almost like a traditionally style stock, the way the grip and everything's located. But when you did shoot one, if it fits you properly, you were like, wow, this is a super comfortable stock to shoot. And it was really well thought out and maybe even just a little bit ahead of its time when they released it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, we retained a lot of the features everybody really loved, but just refined some of the features that needed to be updated. It just mainly around manufacturing, actually, and or needs to be updated for that's what people are looking for now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys saved the chassis. I'm excited to get it here. We're going to put one on the Long Range Shooting School's line just because, just to feel it for people that have never shot one before. We have several customers that absolutely fell in love with it and still shoot them today and are excited and waiting to see the new one coming out. The TIMBR, I was really excited. I know this sounds silly, but I was really excited to see that one come out online for sale as well. I'm a varmint hunter from a kid, and I looked at it and I thought, hey, it's going to be a really solid stock. I mean, laminates are strong to begin with. What possessed you guys to do a hybrid like that?
So we had a gentleman come on to do woodworking or on the wood side of it, and we knew that there was definitely a demand for that traditional feel of wood, but we didn't want to release just another wood stock without putting an MDT twist on it. Now, we knew there's some the weaknesses around it, obviously bedding, having to bed it, or pillar beds, or movement in general. When you are in your action seating area or your action bed area. So we decided to go and look at doing it a different way by having basically a micro chassis that we have that goes from the fore end down into the grip and attaches them together. And then we also allowed us to have different style grips as well, with a vertical grip again and a angled grip and with a polymer, which is also nice for when you are shooting in crappier conditions, right? Mm-hmm. So combining all that together, we came up with the TIMBR. It shoots amazing. Like it has a really great feel to it. It has very, very accurate. We added the M-LOK on the fore ends. You can attach whatever you want for a bipod or arc rail, whatever you want to do that way. Has a full adjustability in the rear end for your length of pull, your cheek piece. Just basically modernized what a wood stock can be with an MDT twist on it.
And the retail of the TIMBR?
It is $899 US.
And that's with the bottom metal basically already installed and adjustable length of pull, adjustable cheek piece.
Yep. Yeah. That's bottom metal. Yeah. Adjustable grip or changeable grip, and then pick rail on the front there for where the M-LOK goes. And that's the two different colors currently. We likely will add some other stuff, possibly go to like a hard, like a solid hardwood as well. We're working on a few different things down the road here. We have also, with the wood shop, we actually added some replaceable panels even for the XRS now as well, which people are loving too.
Oh, that is awesome. And, one of the things with especially laminates like this, and a lot of varmint hunters would use these, is they are strong and they are, I would say, almost completely impervious to weather if they're sealed up properly. I mean, they're good formats and they can be heavy if they're solid. So putting the chassis inside of it is probably a really great idea. But it was always a problem because it never really came with any type of real adjustability. And the few that were available out there, like you said, they rarely ever put aluminum pillars in them. They always needed bedded. There was a little bit of work to do to get them up to that level.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
So one of the things I talked on the podcast a while back and was my favorite chassis for under $1,000. I say it all the time. I've done it talked about it on the YouTube channel, but honest to God, the Oryx chassis, I think, is probably the most unsung hero of a chassis that I think money can buy. And we have built so many rifles on it. So let's talk about the Oryx a little bit, because I think this one's like the most completely underrated stock on the market.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's for the money. Like it's $429 US, and it's a solid stock. Like it's a one-piece aluminum center body that runs from the forend, like all the way to the front of the forend to the back of the buttstock, and then we do have an attached bottom metal and polymer buttstock panels that go on there. In the polymer on the sides and the front, just more for aesthetics. To be really jazz it up a bit. The price point on it is amazing. It shoots really well. You can add ARCA to it. You can, put a bagger on it. You can do a few different things like that. It's for the price point, it's really hard to get into a chassis system that performs well. You're definitely going to see an increase in accuracy for somebody that wants to get into the chassis game. It's definitely a great first step.
We built lots of hunting rifles on it. We have a gentleman that's just a world-class bench rest shooter, and he is absolutely enthralled with it. Like, he's like, it's the best little chassis ever. I'm like, I know. And it one of the things that you didn't do is, a lot of times when you buy a lesser expensive chassis, right away you're thinking flimsy and you're trying to level up your bipod, the thing's twisting on you. And there's a lot of OEM chassis that are built on inexpensive guns that are just, it's like a wet noodle under, everything's just moving around while you're trying to get on the gun. You even put your cheek on it and you can flex it. But it's almost like a mini AI type, the way the full length aluminum from the front, the whole way through the chassis to the rear to the buttstock. That means a lot for making it rigid. And then you didn't take out too much material. So it's not flexing all over the place and just this baby thin, aluminum. So, I mean, I don't know of any stock that even close to it. If you said, hey, give me a $700 stock, what's the best or $800? I would still throw the Oryx in there and say, look, I think for someone that just wants a bomb-proof horse could roll over on it, I don't think you'd damage it. It's a beat 'em up, go get 'em stock that won't break the bank.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we do offer in a pile of different inlets as well. Like, it's a pretty impressive list of inlets we have it from Rimfires, Howas, Remington, Savages, like multiple in each of those.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things that a lot of these guns that they really, the weakest link a lot of times is the stock factory guns. Not all, but a lot of them are just like we see here at school that they can't level their bipod up without the forearm twisting all over the place. And so a lot of the upgrades that you can do for a factory gun just to get it to the level that it should be at is just to get rid of the Tupperware stock off of it and put a good chassis on it, at least something that's strong anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally agree.
And then as far as anything new coming out in 2023 SHOT Show that you can talk about?
We got a few things coming out. A few things we'll be showing there as well. We've got a new bipod we'll be showing off, which is like going to be a budget entry-level bipod. We will have obviously the final version of the ACC Elite there to show off to people. There's quite a few people interested in that. And we've got a couple other cool products. Actually, that one is going to be dropping on Friday, I believe, being released on Friday. So some pretty exciting stuff coming out. So just a little bit of a tidbit of information there for you.
So, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. If those that are listening would like to see a lot of the chassis and stuff that we're talking about, you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. Keep in touch with new stuff that comes out and hope to see you at some matches sometime.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Have yourself a good day.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. We really appreciate it. We've got several of those chassis coming in. The first ACC Elite is here and actually sold already. And we have a couple of the other chassis that will be coming in. We'll be doing some video reviews on them. Really excited to try to get my hands on a couple of them. The J. Allen or JAE 700 is one of them. So it is on order. It has been on order, and they have released them, so we expect it anytime soon. The other thing I'd like to throw out here on the podcast, of course, MDT is a proud sponsor of the show, and we always thank them for their support of the show. It really does help make this show possible. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background. There's a lot of equipment involved and a lot of time. So we'd like to thank MDT for being a sponsor of the show, as well as I always throw it out on the podcast that anytime we bring on advertisers that we don't advertise anybody's product whose product we don't use or believe in. It's sort of the standard that we set here. So we've had years where people have actually sent us a check and said, hey, I'd like to be mentioned on the podcast, or here, we'd like to advertise. If you could mention us. And to be honest, we sent their money back. We don't know them. We don't use their product. We have no relations. And for us, it's really important that if we're going to have an advertiser to have a product that we really do like, that we believe in, that we use, that we know that if a customer goes out and buys it and uses it, that they're going to be happy with it. And they're not going to call back and say, you're just another guy out there selling junk. We don't do that. So we really do thank MDT, and you can learn more about MDT. It's MDTTac.com. That's MDTTac.com. You get a chance to look over all the cool chassis that we talked about. Also, I'd like to just throw out there, if you like the podcast and like to support the show, you can stop over to Patreon. It's $3 a month. You can become a team member of Wolf Precision. We really appreciate that, and thank you so much for everyone who has signed up so far. It really helps out a lot. We're building a new studio booth. So with that studio booth, we're going to do a live video. And so when we do our videos, we're going to try to do some streaming and have both myself and whoever the guests are going to be that we can post up on YouTube and have a video version of the podcast there. So it ought to really up our game for 2023. We will hopefully have that operational sometime late spring, maybe early summer, but it ought to be a lot of fun. So you actually get to see what I look like in person. And while I'm talking away on these microphones, yes, I probably really do talk this fast all the time. So really looking forward to all of that. Thank you all for supporting the show. We really appreciate it. Also, don't forget, our online long-range shooting school is up and running. We have over 400 minutes to 500 minutes of archived video that's for training. Season 1 or Session 1 is actually just about complete. We've got targets. We're putting up challenge targets now for people to shoot, and we'll be starting into Session 2 here very shortly. So the long-range shooting school online is for those who would like to attend our long-range shooting school but just can't come in. And COVID has taught us that we can train this type of stuff remotely. And so if you want to attend a world-class school and you want to do it from the convenience of your own home, we really would like to invite you to join us. It's Wolf Precision's online long-range shooting school, and you can stop over to our website. It's wolfprecision.net and see it there. And to register, you just click on the Patreon page, sign up for Patreon. It gives you full access to all the video content. We are posting new stuff up weekly. We will continue on our fundamental series, which is going to take up the next 2 or 3 podcasts, really trying to get you the most out of your shooting and out of your equipment, and so you can go out and enjoy yourself learning the art of long-range shooting. So we'll be continuing on that. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here at the show. We really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Long-Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.